Hello, I'm Bill Woods. Welcome to round 14 of the Formula One World Championship. There is this final European round and two more in the United States and Japan to go before we decide the 2003 championship. It's an historic circuit, the oldest running circuit in the championship, and it is an absolutely wonderful contest for the championship, we're pleased to say. Neil Crompton, welcome to you. Great battle for the points. Two separating the top three drivers, lots of pressure on. They've been testing their little you-know-whats off in the last couple of weeks, getting ready for this.
Haven't they ever? I mean, what an exciting situation in this championship. And when the brakes came off with the summer testing ban, everybody went berserk. In particular, 4 days of testing at Monza for both Ferrari and for Williams. Many of the teams did 2 and 3 days, but those teams chose to stay on for the extra day. And in Ferrari's case, quite extraordinary that they continued to test simultaneously at Fiorano at their own test track and then followed it up with more last week as well. And they've recorded something in the order, believe it or not, 10,000 kilometres with 4 motor cars in the first week and as many as 4 cars in the second week. Those numbers are extraordinary.
They are very, very serious about defending a 1-point lead. Let's look at the championship points. You'll see why it is becoming quite desperate up there.
And that last round really turned this points table upside down. So just 1 point between Michael and Montoya, and then 1 point back to Kimi Räikkönen. Ralf Schumacher, and we've got some interesting news on him, in fourth with 58. Then Alonso with 54 after that marvellous win. Barrichello with 49, a DNF at the last round. Then David Coulthard with 45. Looking to the constructors, and it's an 8-point margin between Williams, BMW and Ferrari, and then a 6-point margin back to McLaren, Mercedes, then Renault on a charge, BAR Honda, Jaguar, Toyota and Jordan Ford in 8th position.
The tyre war.
This is a very interesting little table, Billy, because it plots the progress of both Bridgestone and Michelin in this championship. It looks a little bit like an out-of-control cockroach, I know, but the bottom line is that Michelin have had sway. And look at that. Bridgestone fought back, and at any point after Monaco, we've been living in Michelin territory, and there's certainly been a lot of discussion about tyres in the recent couple of weeks since we last raced.
For sure, they've been at each other's throats. We'll talk about that in more detail in just a moment. But first, let's look back at the previous round at Hungary, which really set up this extraordinary championship situation.
And the Vodafone review of round 13 from Hungary, an extraordinary start from Alonso, blasted away from pole. The Williams were on the dirty side of the track and they got a shocker, which set up a scenario where Ralph looped it at turn 2 and set off a pretty tough afternoon for him. Meanwhile, Alonso just continued to skip away at the front of the pack. A great start and a very terrific and aggressive race from Mark Webber in the Jaguar. He was right on the money all weekend and really showed his mettle. It was a fine race. There was some great stuff. Rubens Barrichello had some moments. This was one across the chicane, but it ultimately led to a left rear suspension failure and pitched the Ferrari into the barriers at turn 1. A nasty situation, not a lot of runoff there. In the middle of the race, Montoya started to actually make significant progress, recording the fastest lap, but tried pretty hard to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, looping, but recovered from it. Meanwhile, Alonso, can you believe this, actually put a lap on Michael Schumacher, and that set off something of a frenzy in the Italian press, asking questions and what a shame and how can this be? Well, the reality was that Alonso, Michelin and Renault were the hot combo on the day, and it set up a scenario where he was the first Spanish Grand Prix winner, the youngest ever Grand Prix winner, and his very first Grand Prix win. An extraordinary performance and well done, and a tremendous effort from Mark Webber. Now, here's where we'll race tonight at Monza, Italy. As Billy said, this is a wonderful circuit for round 14 in northern Italy near Milan. 5.7 Ks, 11 corners, 3 tough chicanes, 53 laps, 306 Ks, 40 laps the distance for the 75% margin if it's shortened. Really the last of the truly high-speed tracks. Full low downforce configuration, a very high average speed of about 250 kilometres an hour. Top speeds, Billy, in the order, believe it or not, of 350 plus kilometres per hour. Extraordinarily hard on engines. They run at 100% throttle about 70% of the lap. They pound the thing across these curbs, and the mechanical grip requirements to get across the curbs and in fact deal with this circuit because of the low aero requirements are quite extraordinary.
The drivers love it, but at the same time the crews are a little bit worried because it is an engine braking circuit. We're not worried, we're very excited as a matter of fact, because we have a special guest for the Italian Grand Prix. He's back from Europe on a whistle-stop tour. He's whistled, now he's stopped. Would you please welcome Ryan Briscoe, who of course is Toyota's Formula One test driver, and we hope the next European Formula 3 champion. Good to have you with us, mate.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Good to be here.
Now, you've got 6 races to go in European Formula 3 and you have a 30-plus points lead. What's the scenario? Can you do it?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's looking good. It's been very tough, but with 32 points lead, we've got 6 races to go. It's just important to keep getting points, try and win some more races, and yeah, it's looking good.
And you're in very good company too, very competitive. You're at the Masters at Zandvoort recently, where you finished on the podium.
Yeah, I mean, I was on the podium with Nelson Piquet Jr. and, Nico Rosberg was there, so there are some pretty famous names there.
And Ryan, some opportunity in the near future to get back in the F1 car, which I imagine is an enormous leap out of the Formula 3 car to get back in the F1 car.
Yeah, it's a big step, especially with the engine power and downforce, but I'll be stepping up into the Toyota F1 at the end of this month. I'll be having a 3-day test in Spain, which I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Yeah.
Are you excited by the progress they've made in Formula 1, Ryan? Because obviously they've worked very, very hard. There's a lot of weight behind their project, but they're putting the effort in too.
Yeah, they're putting a lot of effort into it. I mean, there are some big steps they've made from last year. The car's getting better and better. And, even throughout the year, they've been making small improvements every race. It's been difficult, especially on the tighter circuits, but, Monza, hopefully they'll have a good race here. Top speeds, they're always very good there. And, we'll see. I mean, it's exciting.
And you know a few of these guys that are running around here. You actually raced against Alonso in the early days.
Yeah, we were rivals back in juniors in go-karts and up through Formula A, and we had some good races together, so it's great to see him winning races in Formula 1.
I guess the hard part is, though, you can never guarantee, and Mark Webber's a case in point, you just don't know how you're going to get into F1. I mean, a lot of people would have written him off too, maybe even 3 times in his career, but you've just got to hang in there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you just got to have determination, keep pushing for it, and just keep concentrating on the job and doing what you can.
And very encouraging this weekend for your guys, because Cristiano was particularly quick on Friday. He made a mistake in qualifying on Saturday, but he was rocket fast on Friday.
Yeah, things are looking very good. I mean, unfortunately in qualifying he made a mistake in Sector 3, but no, it's looking good for them.
Mm.
I suppose in the short term it doesn't matter too much to you, but it's also a sign that they're going pretty well, that they've retained those 2 guys for next year, as opposed to the instability they had at the end of last season.
Yeah, for sure. A bit of stability within the team is important for them. I'm sure Cristiano next year, being his second year, it'll be good for him.
Mm. And I read the other day, Ryan, that there's some possibility now, in fact, that Zonta is looking for an opportunity. He's the current test driver at Toyota, to race in the US. Does that mean that there could be half a chance for Briscoe to sneak in the door here and get your foot jammed in there and keep it open?
Yeah, well, hopefully. I mean, it looks like Zonta might be moving into America doing the kart series or something. So, yeah, I'm certainly keeping my foot in the door, and I'd like to move my way up into being a closer part of the Formula 1 team.
Well, it's good to have you with us, mate, and Ryan will in fact stay with us for the duration of the race. He'll bring us expert comments during and after this very important Italian Grand Prix. In the meantime, let's take a look at qualifying. Before a wheel had turned, the paddock was rocked by the news that Ralf Schumacher would not take part. He was suffering from headaches following his testing crash at this circuit last week. Test driver Marc Genet replaced him and used a practice session to warm up. He was first on track for qualifying and set a competitive time of 1:21.834. David Coulthard improved his lot from Friday's 14th to 8th. Jenson Button also worked a little closer to the front row, 11th to 7th, one of BAR's better efforts this season. Fernando Alonso spun out, the latest winner starting from the back this time. Mark Webber also had problems, not as severe, but his final sector knocked him from 6th down to 11th. Likewise, Cristiano Di Matta, 5th on Friday, caught in a whirlwind of championship contention that decided the first couple of rows. Kimi Raikkonen made row 2, a slight improvement. The big question was, could Michael Schumacher respond to Juan Montoya's benchmark set not only on Friday but on Saturday morning? He was fastest through sectors 1 and 2.
And surely this is going to be provisional pole for Michael Schumacher.
No problem about that. He goes fastest. He's very pleased with that lap.
Rubens Barrichello could not go with his teammate, but he did find P2 at the time. Montoya looked for 2 sectors like the pole man.
He's driving for the line. Has he done it? Has he done it? No, he hasn't.
The only drivers in the 120s on the fastest circuit of the season are the front row starters. Recapping the grid, Barrichello riding shotgun for Michael. Great effort from the former Minardi driver Genet, back on the scene at last. Panis, the best Toyota, leaping over teammate Di Matta. Webber's time was equal to Raikkonen's on Friday, but the Saturday strain showed again. Fisichella reportedly squeezed the most from his Jordan. Baumgartner and Chiesa will have to watch their mirrors, with a frustrated Alonso starting behind them. What an evenly balanced situation it is. We talked a little earlier about the tyre war. It's become more than just a war on the track. There was the big news surrounding Michelin and their use or abuse, whatever you like, of a loophole in the law regarding the tread width. Neil, you can shed some light on that. And ch.10, incidentally, not apologising for the fact that Ferrari pointed it out to the FIA.
No, there was a very bitter media conference when the event first started at Monza this weekend about that. But the simple synopsis of it is we raised on RPM the other day the fact that there's the allegation that Michelin have been able to find a way after the start of the race where the front tyres shouldn't measure beyond a full tread width of 270mm to get onto the shoulder of the tyre, effectively giving them up to another 5 to 10mm of tread width. And they were saying that in terms of the way the rule was defined, that this was perfectly okay. But now the FIA want to define it in a different way. The whistleblower was Ferrari. Allegedly, the brawl goes on. So what's happened now is that to avoid the political situation, Michelin have come up with another tyre. And Ryan, you made an interesting comment when we were just looking at qualifying there, that you had some news from Monza about the performance of that tyre.
Yeah, well, funnily enough, with Michelin's new smaller front tyre, I mean, speaking with the engineers from Toyota, they say the smaller one is actually performing better than the wider one. So it's
because when you think
great news of Bridgestone.
You think about what the tyre does, and it's a huge drag item on a car, particularly on a track like this where speed's a big issue and aero efficiency is a big issue. So they narrow it up slightly and it's faster. So quite extraordinary.
It is. It's an amazing battle. And were you surprised, Ryan, that tyres have had such an impact on this year's championship? They've been the talking point virtually all year. Yeah,
I mean, well, you know, with the tyre wars, it's so important. It's the only contact between the track and the car. So fundamentally, it's the most important aspect of the car.
And there was a meeting earlier in the week, and Charlie Whiting from the FIA is now saying that in terms of his view of the issue, the case is now officially closed. But I understand there's still some possibility that Ferrari are under fire from Michelin. There could be still a legal threat and some legal action as a result of some of the things that were said.
ch.10 used the analogy, which I'm not sure if it was fair or not, but he said if you start a race with a 3-litre engine and finish it with a 3.5-litre engine, then you're entitled to be penalised. You can make up your own mind about that.
One interesting point just to quickly add on that whole thing, and it's been much talked about just in the recent past, is that the tyre configuration, that is the size and shape of the tyre, has been the same since 2001. What a lot of the cynics are saying is why did it take this long to be raised, and why did it take that long for the FIA to intervene?
They're measuring the tyres at the end of the race instead of the start. But it is very, very even. Obviously, Bridgestone has made some progress in the interim. They've improved their tyre.
Well, when you look at the resources and the effort thrown at testing since the summer test ban came off and everybody got ready for this race, it's been quite amazing. And when you look at how tight the grid is, then you can see clearly that, certainly for Ferrari, great progress has been made with Bridgestone. And very interesting, though, to work out and look at just in the way in which this motor race will unfold, because McLaren were quick for the first couple of days at Monza, and then Michael established himself on the third and fourth days, but the whole time through there, Williams have also been very quick with Montoya. Very, very disappointing, obviously, to lose Ralph at this critical stage of the championship, but he had a very bad accident in testing there, which knocked him around.
Ryan, Kimi Räikkönen made the point. He was really, really pleased that he managed to get fourth instead of fifth. It sounds like it might not be so important to a lot of people, but as a current driver, of course, explain why he doesn't want to be starting behind Rubens Barrichello when he's chasing Michael.
Yeah, I mean, the start is very important, and at Monza, you know, the first corner is very tight, and it's important to get there cleanly, so, I mean, for sure he's looking at that.
And Ferrari, of course, would never use team orders to help Michael win the championship. That's never been done before. So that's what Kimi was afraid of, I think. There's Bernie Eccleston.
A couple of new things this weekend, new cylinder heads for the Renault, new bodywork and a new C-spec engine for Sauber, so some improved performance there, and a glimmer of hope I picked up during the week that there may be some settlement in sight involving that man that we saw before with Bernie Eccleston, the banks and the manufacturers, in terms of resolving this ownership crisis in Formula One and where it's going and whether there'll be a GPWC at the end of it all.
Well, Luca de Montezemolo, and I just got that out because it's late at night and it's been a long day, did say that he was quite stern about the prospects of the manufacturers breaking away at the end of the year if Bernie didn't come to some sort of resolution that they were satisfied with.
Incidentally, this is the last event as the BMW Motorsport Director for former Grand Prix driver Gerhard Berger. There's the weather, current temperature, beautiful day in Italy, 25 degrees, an easterly wind with a low strength of only 10 kilometres per hour. Big potential, Ryan, for, you touched on it before, chaos into this first chicane. It's very tight, and traditionally over the years we've seen a lot of nonsense there.
Yeah, they get there very fast. You know, there's a lot of distance before getting there, and it's very slow, very tight. and yeah, it always seems to cause a lot of action.
And because of the massive high-speed approaches to the chicanes on this track, very hard on brakes, very high rate of brake and tyre wear, and you'll see when they rattle wheels off in the pit stops, we'll see a massive amount of carbon dust come away from the rotors and the pads.
Well, braking here is very difficult also because of the low aero level, so you know it's very hard on the brakes.
Places a much higher degree of emphasis on the mechanical aspects of the car and shocks and springs and so on. Warm-up lap for the Italian Grand Prix of 2003. Knife-edge situation in the World Championship. Extreme pressure on these two lead men and a problem for the Jordan. But is now stuttering underway. And remember, this will be the first appearance in a Grand Prix for Mark Genet in a Williams, who I think did a pretty good job, would you agree, Ryan, in qualifying. He does an awful lot of test miles, but he doesn't get the opportunity to do it in this scenario.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, first time for him to do one lap qualifying, for sure there's a lot of pressure there too.
Keep an eye out also because Alonso's at the back of the pack, and he went round at the first chicane, and so we'll see and monitor with interest some progress from him in the Renault starting from that far back. And I've got some information through from Mark Webber just before the start of the race, and he's unfortunately saying that he feels as though it'll be something of a miracle if he can actually come away from this one with a point. He's going to rely heavily on hopefully other people's attrition. They've got tyre wear issues with the Jaguar this weekend, and he says it's also exposed something of an aero weakness in the car. They're just carrying too much drag. They do not have enough downforce to get the kind of lateral load grip that they're looking for, and the car just fundamentally doesn't have enough lap speed. So a little bit down in the mouth, but he has had some magnificent races throughout the season so far.
And they're in a great battle with BAR Honda, as you can see now, for fifth in the championship. Renault's obviously bolted in terms of a top four position. That's pretty much achieved their aim for the season, but a great battle for the also-rans, if you can call them that.
That's seventh pole of the season now for BMW, should I say Bridgestone, equaling the Michelin 7 pole positions, and there's a man that's been under the blowtorch just in the last 7 or 14 days. Incidentally, it took over £1 million worth of additional development to be able to come up with that rectification for the front tyre for Michelin just in that last 14 days.
Well, we've seen a fair bit of carnage this year from the start line. Let's hope that we don't lose a championship contender early in the race. That certainly would put a dampener on proceedings. We want those top three to be dicing right the way through to the end.
Pretty successful qualifying also for BAR. They've had a good test at Monza. They ran for 3 days. They also ran over in central France with Townsend Bell, who did Indy Lights, and he's been doing Formula 3000 in Europe this year as well. So an intensified effort and strong qualifying from both Jenson Button and Jacques Villeneuve. Something of a face-saver for them because they've had a pretty appalling run just in recent races.
Raikkonen's not won a race since round 2. Schumacher's gone winless. In fact, his scale of point scoring has deteriorated in the last 4 rounds, so very high pressure situation here. Let's hear from Martin Brundle and James Allen.
He'll be changing his strategy, possibly going to a very long first stint, trying to play himself into the game a bit later on. But we will focus now on the Grand Prix, which is about to start.
Montoya messing around with something, and there's Alonso at the back. He'll have an advantage of having warmer tyres. He should be coming through, especially with the launch control he's got. And Montoya was messing around on his side of his cockpit down there. He was very steady as he began this warm-up lap.
Will it be Forza Ferrari or bombastic BMW on the run down to the first corner? We find out now. What a great start from the Toyota down the middle, and a big crash at the back. It's one of the Minardis, I think. Where's Montoya? They're side by side going down the run. He's got a poor start. Barrichello's attacking him. Will he get second place? Yes, he will. He resists Tiano Trulli, who got a flyer, but advantage Schumacher into turn 1. Trulli and Barrichello side side by side, and that's Justin Wilson. I wonder if it was his car that flew up in the air.
We think it's Alonso ran into the back of Wilson. Alonso on the back of the grid after he spun yesterday. And look at this down into turn 2. Schumacher having to cover the line. Montoya, will he get through there? They'll tangle if they're not careful. They're so close to tangling. And Michael Schumacher braves it out on the outside. Brilliant action on this first lap. And will he lose out to the fast-starting Renault of Trulli? No, Trulli backs out of it. It's Barrichello that lost out. Also, he's back to 4th.
Well, that certainly wasn't in Montoya's game plan. He tried very, very hard there.
Renault stopped. Sorry, James. The Renault backed out of it. So the two McLarens flashed past. What's happened to Jarno Trulli? So Michael Schumacher, Montoya, and it's Barrichello, Raikkonen, and a very fast-starting David Coulthard.
Well, Montoya said yesterday he was not afraid to attack Michael Schumacher here. There you can see Jarno Trulli. Something's gone wrong with that car. He suddenly lost drive, so perhaps engine hydraulics, who knows. But now Montoya has got to sit and think about the back of Michael Schumacher, who has a small 2 miles an hour advantage in a straight line. But Montoya's car is set up to protect the rear tyres more during the course of the race and to be more stable under braking. It's going to be cat and mouse on the tactics as well.
Looking forward to seeing a replay of that. Michael Schumacher knew he had to control this race. There is Barrichello having a go. He passed. No, he was up to the 3rd because of the Renault's problem, but he may just get penalised for that. He didn't gain a place, but he sure did manage to not lose one. Michael Schumacher with a 0.7 of a second lead.
Schumacher leads as Alonso comes in. It does look as though it was him that hit the back of the Jaguar of Justin Wilson. Let's look at the order then. Michael Schumacher at the end of lap 1 leads Montoya. Barrichello 3rd, Raikkonen is 4th. 5th is David Coulthard. 6th, Panis. 7th, Marc Genet. 8th, Villeneuve. 9th, Button, who has dropped from 7th on the grid, and Villeneuve's had a blinder of a start, up 2 places to pass his teammate. Webber is 10th for Jaguar, 11th Heidfeld, and 12th de Matter.
So the fast starters then, and Genet slipped down at 3 points, Button down 4, Trulli was up 3, and now his car's stopped. Coulthard up 2, Villeneuve up 2, Wilson appeared not to start, and we think Alonso ran clean into the back of him. And in the pits then is Verstappen in the Minardi. Alonso has now departed pit lane with a new front nose and wing. Trulli has stopped in the first sector. Wilson is running again now. Wilson back in the Grand Prix.
Apparently we're hearing from our F1 ITV pit crew that Wilson couldn't find first gear, so that was obviously the problem for him on the grid, and Alonso didn't expect the Jaguar not to move, so he hit the back of it. There you can see the Minardi just filtering back in as Mark Webber runs a little bit wide into the first corner. Everybody's got their temperatures up, everyone's pushing hard. You can see a lot of people running wide. Let's look again.
Yeah, at the back then, and whoa, right up in the air then, and I don't think it was Wilson at all. I think it must have been Verstappen that he hit. So Alonso, with the fast-starting Renault, unfortunately started right into the back of somebody else. And this, Michael Schumacher just making it through the first chicane. Here we go again. Now you're going to see who got run into the back of by Alonso. And
that's the parade lap.
This is the parade lap. So Italian showing us the wrong one here, I think. This is the parade lap. So back to the Grand Prix then. Michael Schumacher still leading by 0.7 of a second from Barrichello. It is noted on the computer that he missed turn 2, but no action at this time. Raikkonen, Coulthard, Genet in 6th.
Well, we start to turn our attention to thinking a little bit about tactics. Recall that with the new rules, you have to qualify on Saturday with the fuel with which you'll start Sunday's Grand Prix. And it's always a guessing game, how much fuel to put in to get yourself a little bit further up the grid. But you don't want to compromise yourself come race day. Well, the intelligence coming up from the pits and paddock this morning was that Michael Schumacher has perhaps 2, maybe 3 laps less fuel than Juan Montoya. That could prove potentially critical if it is the case. Montoya able to run a little bit longer in the first stint than his rival, and we believe that McLaren, Kimi Raikkonen, has a reasonable amount of fuel as well. McLaren very bullish about the tactics, very bullish about the car they've put on the track today. They believe they can play a part in this Grand Prix. There is Kimi Raikkonen chasing down Rubens Barrichello. He's got David Coulthard just behind him, and this is lap 4.
So then Michael's still got his rear gunner in 3rd place. Montoya's out by himself. Genet's been dropped down to 6th, and he's 8.8 seconds adrift. And Raikkonen's mates come up behind him in the form of David Coulthard. So they've certainly, 2 of the 3 of them have got the help they need, as Justin Wilson pits again, unfortunately for him. He's running at the back, and clearly still some dramas, probably in the gearbox department. There's Genet falling back from the leading pack. He needs to be up there for BMW if they need points. He's in there today. In place of Ralf Schumacher, he must score some points.
Certainly does. We're hearing now from the pits that it was, in fact, Jos Verstappen who got hit by Alonso. That's been confirmed now. He has punctures, he has a damaged car, as you would imagine. So that clears up that little issue. Ted, what can you tell us?
Down at Renault, James, Renault have really a problem in that Jarno Trulli has stopped in a blind spot in the circuit.
1 second, Ted. Sorry, Cristiano Di Matta has had a left rear puncture coming down towards the Parabolica, and that was potentially very dangerous indeed at over 200 miles an hour, but luckily nobody hit him.
Interesting, though. Was that a puncture? Was it some kind of failure? That'll be causing a bit of concern as to what actually happened there. Clearly, lots of drama in off the start and through here. You're going to see the left rear. It's already come inboard. Luckily, he didn't back it into the barrier. It will have destroyed the underneath, but the car's out of the Grand Prix, beached in the gravel. They'll tow that away, I'd imagine, under double-waved yellows. I don't anticipate a safety car situation for that.
There are the waved yellows, as you can see. Trulli's car over on the side of the track. Green flag there means it's OK. The significance of that means you can't overtake when during the yellow flag zone. Ted, sorry to interrupt you. What do you have to tell us?
No, that's all right, James. Yeah, it's just that Trulli has stopped in a blind spot in the circuit, so they've got no idea what happened. The radio failed, so they don't know whether it was anything like that. We think it might be an electronic failure that stopped Alonso yesterday. That would be the most likely explanation at this point.
Brilliant driving from Montoya and Michael Schumacher. This, of course, a replay of the first lap. Montoya still wanting to have another go and truly thinking, I'll have a piece of this action. Montoya probably didn't realise he was so close, but stunning driving from the leading two there. But it was Michael Schumacher who braved it out, got his car in the right place. The gap now 1.8 seconds. But look at that, the two McLarens right in there too, James.
They certainly are. Montoya was 1.8 seconds behind Michael Schumacher, as you say. A further 2 behind him is Rubens Barrichello. 1.5 seconds behind Barrichello is Raikkonen. And Montoya obviously at the moment content to sit behind Michael Schumacher. He's had 1 go at passing him. He's had 2, in fact, goes into the first 2 chicanes. It hasn't paid off, so now he's playing a waiting game.
And the yellows have gone. They've obviously cleared Di Matta's car down at Parabolica. But yesterday, interestingly, when Toyota had a problem in exactly the same place that Trulli's car stopped, they red flagged the session. You're going to pass it now. They cannot recover a car from that place. It's underneath the old circuit. At the moment, no signs of a safety car, though. And Michael Schumacher still leads by 1.8 seconds from Montoya. Barrichello a further 1.9 behind.
Welcome back. This is the Italian Grand Prix, and I'm sitting here with 2 drivers. I don't know. Would you like to be in that start, Ryan Briscoe? That was breathtaking.
Oh, unbelievable. And fantastic driving from both Schumacher and Montoya. It's amazing they didn't touch.
That was very impressive, that side-by-side action as those guys went through the chicane. Interestingly, Rubens is the fastest man on the circuit at the moment at 22.4. He's just gone 1/10 quicker than Michael. And for fans of Mark Webber, he's moved up a spot and currently sits in 10th position. He's lapping in the low 1:24, so he's giving away a couple of seconds at the moment to the leaders.
Schumacher just pulling out a little bit of time on Montoya, but Barrichello, of course, courtesy of that fastest lap, has squeezed up on him. And in the distance, Raikkonen and Coulthard on top there watching very carefully. James made a very good point about the setup of the cars. Montoya saving the rear tyre, so that'll be interesting when we get a little bit further into the race.
Ryan, just looking at the profile of the curbs at Monza, it looks to me like a place where it'd be very easy to damage a tyre, and that's a possible explanation as to what's happened to your teammate Cristiano.
Yeah, it could be. It's difficult to see what actually happened maybe on the first lap if there was contact or something, but yeah, it's certainly not nice to have your rear tyre blow at 200k an hour.
Massive straight line speed as we listen to the Ferrari. Another one from Barrichello. He's really cranking it up now as we go back to Martin Brundle and James Allen.
Lap 8 of the Italian Grand Prix at Monza. You've missed nothing. Rubens Barrichello there has just set the fastest lap of the race so far, a 1:22.3. Pretty fierce pace as he closes down Juan Montoya. His task today to get in front of him and try and protect Michael Schumacher and also protect his championship position by taking points off Montoya. That's what Rubens is trying to do. He's the fastest man on the racetrack at the moment. The two McLarens behind, Raikkonen and Coulthard, 4th and 5th, playing a waiting game at the moment. But we expect them to come into the race more and more strongly as it goes on. Michael Schumacher leading Montoya now by 2.4 seconds. There is the Colombian in the BMW Williams. Montoya 2nd, Barrichello 3rd, Raikkonen 4th, Coulthard 5th. Marc Genet, Super Sub test driver in for Ralf Schumacher, is in 6th place, but now 11.5 seconds behind the race leader.
Yes, he's not raced for 3 years other than a few of the, what is it called, Super Nissan or something in Spain. So Genet really, his pace in the early stages probably not what he may have hoped, what Williams may have hoped, but Montoya is a shuttlecock between the two Ferraris. Sadly for him, he's moving back towards Barrichello. The lead up to 2.5 seconds. Barrichello the fastest man on the racetrack, but Raikkonen and Coulthard are right there on lap times too, so 7 seconds covering the top 5. There are double waved yellows down there because there are men on the racetrack. Now that effectively means slow down and be prepared to stop, double waved yellows, but they're only doing about 180 miles an hour when they see them, and about 210 a bit further along. But what can you do? You're in a motor race, you've got to be aware that they're there. There's very little overtaking goes on down that straight anyway, but you know, how much have you got to slow down? A lot more theoretically than they are at the moment, but they're all just flat out and nailed to the firewall with the throttle pedal, so they're not slowing down.
Difficult decision really for the race director, because 9 laps into this Grand Prix, all the drivers in the race know that car is there. They know it's over to the left-hand side. All of them have no intention of going anywhere near it. So in that sense, it's safe, but at the same time, it's not really ideal to have a racing car sitting on the side of the racetrack. Kimi Raikkonen, though, has just set the fastest lap of the race so far into the 22, low 22.2s, and there he is. Kimi Raikkonen starting to get stronger now. He's 5 seconds behind the race leader, just over 1.5 behind Barrichello, and Montoya is going to start having quite a lot of attention behind him shortly.
And the Renault there you'll see is Alonso being lapped, having pitted, having had a start line incident, started at the back, pitted, has now been lapped, the winner of the last Grand Prix. That's how it goes in this sport. But there'll be some smiles on the pit wall. The ones wearing red shirts will be very happy. Their cars are right there on pace. They've got enough pace at the moment, it seems, to win this Grand Prix, but it's early stages. There's the double wave yellow. There'll be some smiles on the silver pit lane as well, pit wall, because McLaren are right in it at the moment with pace. We'll see when they stop, but I'm expecting stops sort of around 12 laps, something like that. Anybody coming in much later than that and they're leading this race or at the sharp end of this race are doing very well. But you have to say, you wonder what they're going to do about that stricken Renault. There were 2 guys on the track, but they were kind of looking at it as much, well, we're here now, but what are we actually going to do now we've arrived?
Quick check on the Brits for you as Michael Schumacher sets a new fastest lap. He's trying to stretch out his advantage over 1 more second now ahead of Juan Montoya. Ralf Furman is watching this Grand Prix from the Jordan Hospitality Unit after a middle ear problem caused in an accident at the Hungarian Grand Prix 3 weeks ago. He's still not fit to race, so Zolt Baumgartner is replacing him. Wilson is out of the race, Coulthard is 5th and Button is 9th, and Jeff Willis, technical director of BAR, joins us now. Jeff, first of all, what happened to Jensen? Why do you go backwards?
We had a little technical problem with Jensen. It slowed us down on the start, and we got jumped by Panis. But we're reasonably happy at the moment.
What do you make of the tactics at the front, Jeff? We've got Michael Schumacher now 3.5 seconds ahead of Montoya. Montoya certainly had a go at passing him at the start, but do you believe he's got a bit more fuel on board?
It's possible. He didn't make the start that we thought. We thought Juan Pablo would get the jump, and Michael's obviously got a very good start. Looks very exciting up at the front.
Yeah, Jeff, when you do anything now, obviously you've got your 8th and 9th, so you're probably still in the zone you expected to be in, although your cars have swapped around. Will you change anything after that start with your strategy?
No, we're pretty much on line with strategy. We'll probably swap the order of the 2 drivers stop. Panis is holding us up a little bit. We have to think whether he's going to stop before us or not.
And how will you communicate that to the drivers? Just on the pit board, or you trust the radio enough around here?
We know which bits of the circuit we can communicate, and we'll give them the call when we need to.
OK, good luck. We'll talk to you later.
Thank you.
Coulthard has pitted then, so Coulthard pits at the end of the 11th lap. So first one in, first one to blink are McLaren, and down the car goes. Fuel, quite a lot of fuel going in, nice and smooth on the way out, but not a great stop there. And then he gets slightly held up, but of course they're both now to exactly the same speed down the pit lane, and not held up too much then by the Toyota.
No, it was quite a lot of fuel that went into that car. It was over 9 seconds worth, so around about 60 odd kilos of fuel. That should take him, well, I imagine it'll take him about 20 laps further into this race. This is lap 12. We're expecting race leader Michael Schumacher to make a stop anytime in the next couple of laps, if our information was correct. Marc Gené also possibly for BMW Williams. We'll see. This is certainly the zone for the first pit stops. As we've seen throughout the season so far, they tend to run a slightly shorter first stint, so they're not compromised too much on the weight of the fuel in qualifying on Saturday. And then the second and third stints of the race tend to be a little bit longer. But if it is the case that Montoya has a bit more fuel in, he needs to be doing more with it, because he's not close enough to Michael Schumacher at the moment. Schumacher really is stretching his advantage. He's 4.3 seconds now. There you can see the almost half the length of the pit straight ahead of Montoya, and that's not at all in the game plan for Montoya.
We saw the slow-mo replays of just the punishment these cars take over the curbs. Of course, they've got a ride height of something a little over half an inch at the front at low speed, and they're touching the ground at high speed. But if you tried to drive around these curbs to protect the car, you'd be 2 seconds a lap off the pace at least. So you have to charge at the curbs and just try and unload the tyres and bounce across them. But it really does put a lot of shock loading through the suspension and chassis, and of course through the driver too.
Well, Michael Schumacher went over 320 laps, racing laps this season, without leading a single one. But from the start here at Monza, he's managed to get the lead. He's building on it at the moment. 4.5 seconds was the margin last time. He's extending it, you can see, 4.6. His stop will be shortly, and we can see that we saw a second ago that the BMW Williams team getting ready for one of their two drivers. We think that's going to be Marc Gené coming in first. The Spaniard currently running in 5th place. As David Coulthard made that early stop, he's dropped down now to 11th place.
Coulthard had enough margin. I suspect why they filled him with more fuel is he was quite a long way ahead of 6th place man Gené, so they could afford to use 2 or 3 seconds of extra fueling to run him further. Normally, ideally, they would love to have just run this as a one-stop, or certainly a much longer first stint. And Raikkonen then, the second man in, Gené in 2, so Gené did pit for Williams. And I would think Kimi Raikkonen and the McLaren team will be very happy at how close he was to the back of Barrichello and Montoya in 2nd and 3rd. Slightly shorter stop for him, and Gené still stationary in the Williams pit then, and off he goes. Now that's surprising, isn't it? Gené very close there. It's closer than I would have expected to the back of Raikkonen, James.
Yep, obviously had a very good in-lap. And for a driver who's, as you said, hardly driven really, done 33 Grand Prix for Minardi, but the last one was quite a few years ago now. A little bit of Formula Nissan action, but it's not the same as Formula One, certainly. Webber's made a pit stop, and they're all about the same, aren't they, tactically? They're all putting the same sort of amount of fuel in, about 20 laps worth, 9 seconds. So we'll see what Michael Schumacher and Juan Montoya do. That's where the brains will come in, of Ross Brawn on the timing wall for Ferrari, and Sam Michael down at Williams, as to how they can play this game, whether one of them will run a little bit longer than the other, try and get a bit of an advantage. Certainly a lot of it will come down to strategy as Michael Schumacher crosses the line to complete lap 14, and we wait to see what the margin is to Montoya. 4.6 last time by. He's taken another 3/10 out of him.
Barrichello pits from 3rd. Michael still in the 1:21.8, just to demonstrate the pace of that. That would have put him 5th on the grid in qualifying. This is an extremely fast motor race, and Michael Schumacher is the fastest man in it, and looking good at the moment. Just the heat, kind of the burning of any oil or rubbish on the brakes and pads there. The brakes really do take quite a pounding as you're constantly slowing down from well over 200 miles an hour. And Louise is with Jarno Trulli.
Jarno, all we've heard so far is an electrical problem. Can you tell us more?
Yes, basically I had a very good start, and I was nearly fighting with Michael and Juan Pablo, but unfortunately I had an hydraulic problem which stopped completely the car electronically and everything, so I couldn't do anything else. Right then, just stop the car.
Thanks, Jarno.
Bad news for him. I mean, he certainly was looking pretty racy, wasn't he, in that early stage. But Michael Schumacher now leads by 4.9 seconds, 39 laps remaining, 3.6 miles for each and every lap. This is the parabolic, of course. This is when Michael crashed on the out lap of the first Friday morning session here. But now he's pitting then. The leader pits.
Dives into the pit lane, race leader. This is a pretty important stop. We expect he's going to make 2 of them this afternoon. And this is one where Montoya now flashes past. He goes into the lead of the Grand Prix. Montoya leads, but he had nearly 5 seconds disadvantage to Schumacher at the end of the last lap. Very, very tidy pit stop from Ferrari. And Michael Schumacher is back out again on track.
Well, he had a 4.9 lead. It's interesting that Montoya's stretched it a little bit further, but surely Montoya will pit at the end of this lap. His teammate was in 2 laps ago, so maybe we said he was very slow on the warm-up lap. He didn't spin his wheels away from the start-finish line. His pace hasn't been that hot, and maybe Montoya saved himself another lap of gas, or maybe this was his strategy. Nonetheless, surely he'll be in any time soon, but he'll be doing well to cut anything back of that 4.9 deficit.
Yeah, a lot of people coming into the pits now, making their stops. And at the moment, Jacques Villeneuve, who has yet to make a stop, is up into 3rd place. Jenson Button was behind him in 4th. He's just come into the pits. So too has Heinz-Harald Frentzen. We've seen already Barrichello. So only Montoya of the front runners still to make a stop. Here he is. We ride on board with him.
Surely they are expecting him then, so he'll take the normal line through Parabolica, then he'll start cutting in a little bit more right than normal, lining it up. It's a difficult pit lane speed limiter here because you've got a straight run in from max speed straight in to this 80 km/h zone. And there he goes then for the yellow board. He's got to be out in something like 7.5 if he's going to do anything special here. Down to Ted.
This was his planned strategy. There he goes. Good stop. 8.4. Montoya was complaining of bagloads of oversteer. So what they've done is taken out some front wing to try and give him a balanced car for this stint.
OK, so they can adjust the front wing quite easily. Michael retakes the lead of the Grand Prix then, but Montoya exits still ahead of Barrichello, but Barrichello will be charging down there at 220 miles an hour, and Montoya's got to sweep out to take the normal racing line. So at the moment it looks pretty much status quo, doesn't it, after those first stops. So Villeneuve's also pitted from what was third place, and the only man not to pit at the moment then, Baumgartner in the Jordan and Fisichella in the sister car.
So Montoya did not have as big a fuel margin as perhaps many had thought. Just 1 lap more then of fuel in the car than Michael Schumacher. Not enough to make the difference, particularly as he had fallen almost 5 seconds behind the German after the first stint. So now Michael Schumacher is in control of this race, as he has been more or less since the end of the first lap. He had a couple of scares at the start as Juan Montoya went wheel to wheel with him. Now we see Fernando Alonso already... whoa! Well, that's quite a bit of debris there down at the second chicane, and that'll certainly slow the Renault down a bit.
Yeah, that's a long job changing that floor. He's had a pretty dismal afternoon, hasn't he? He was running back in 15th after a start line incident, a new nose, wasn't lapping particularly quickly either, Alonso, and that's pretty significant damage underneath there. And at these high speeds, you can't go around, cruise around with that lot flapping around.
Yeah, well, certainly yesterday's spin in qualifying was put down to a traction control failure. Electronics led him down there. It wasn't his fault, but he was inch perfect in everything he did in Hungary 3 weeks ago, and certainly this weekend he'll want to get out of here and forget all about Monza 2003. Schumacher leads, 3.4 seconds the margin to Montoya, so he's taken 2.5 seconds out of it after the first stint into the pit stops. Barrichello's 3rd, 4th is Raikkonen, 5th is Coulthard, and 6th, Marc Genet.
We're back at Monza with Toyota's Formula One test driver Ryan Briscoe. What are your thoughts so far, Ryan? Interesting cat and mouse game up front with Montoya luckily getting out ahead of Rubens. That saved himself a whole lot of trouble.
Yeah, it's quite interesting seeing that with the top teams, Williams and Ferrari, that they're using the, let's say, second drivers to run less fuel to try and get in front of the others for the championship. But
well, oh my goodness. Now that is one brave track marshal, but ripping that bit of debris. When you fly around a corner like that and see something like that on the circuit, it must cause a few palpitations, because it could be anything, couldn't it?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, especially in a race, you don't want to run over it with your tyre because you'll just get a puncture straight away. But, yeah.
Billy, it's significant that after the retrim that they've done on Montoya's car on the front wing to get it back into a better balance, he's actually just knocked over the fastest first sector of the race to date, which was a 26.1. Interesting also, there was only 0.2 of a second between the two key men in terms of pit stop stationary time. We can't obviously measure accurately total time lost in terms of pit in and pit out, but stationary time was only 0.2 of a second. They both took on in the order of 90 litres of fuel.
Just having a listen there to Rubens Barrichello's Ferrari as the pit crew watches on. And we're just about ready to return you to regular commentary.
Lap 20 of the Italian Grand Prix at Monza. Michael Schumacher leads Juan Montoya with the margin which before the first round of pit stops just a few laps ago was 4.9 seconds is now down to 2.7 seconds. The changes which Ted described to us have certainly made a difference to the handling of the BMW Williams of Juan Montoya. He's much happier as Barrichello makes an adjustment there on his steering wheel as he goes down the straight, start-finish straight. And well, certainly Montoya is a lot more pacey in this middle stint of the race. Barrichello dropping away from him now. He's 3.7 seconds behind the Williams driver. Raikkonen, he's in touch, 5 seconds behind Barrichello, but just over 11 behind race leader Michael Schumacher. And David Coulthard is shadowing his teammate.
So whether it was the change of front wing, taking a little bit of front wing out to dial out some of the oversteer Montoya was talking about, or whether he just prefers this set of tyres, you do get fractionally different feeling and balance and grip level on the tyres as Baumgartner pits from 14th in the Jordan. But whatever it is, Montoya's just completed 3 consecutive faster laps than Michael Schumacher. And suddenly, in this phase of the Grand Prix, it's Montoya on the offensive. There's your leader. The gap now is 2.5 seconds, so that's 4 consecutive laps. In this phase of the race, then, Montoya is going to close Michael down. And Louise is with Cristiano D'Amato.
Cristiano, what happened there? Was it a puncture?
Difficult to say exactly what it was. Definitely it was something on the left rear tire, obviously, but it's difficult to say if it was a puncture or because of the incident on the first lap, maybe ran over some carbon fiber piece. Difficult to say. We have to wait until the car comes back to check the tires properly.
Pretty nasty place for it to happen.
Yeah, there wasn't a very good feeling, but at least didn't crash anywhere. That was lucky on that.
Pleased to see him one piece.
Okay, thank you.
Fantastic voice that guy's got. It's like a Brazilian samba dance, isn't it? It lilts up and down, goes all over the place. I could listen to that all day. Unfortunately, he'd rather be out there on the racetrack racing, and that was, as Louise said, a particularly nasty incident for D'Amato. Big puncture, around 200 miles an hour down the main back straight into the Parabolica. But luckily, he's okay. Montoya is pushing hard. Rubens Barrichello is pushing hard to try and catch him, but he's falling still off the back of Montoya, and this is a real game of cat and mouse between Ferrari and Williams. And with all that's gone into this Grand Prix, the build-up to this Grand Prix, Martin, with the Ferrari launching a protest against Michelin tyres used by Williams, McLaren, Renault, etc. through the summer to such fantastic effect, and the change of the way that the FIA is going to enforce the tyre regulations. They'll be measuring tyres now at the end of this Grand Prix. That contact patch you see at the front tyres, the bit that's in contact with the ground, that's where the controversy has been about. And well, we'll see at the end of the Grand Prix. Hopefully the new Michelins are in conformity. Jeff Willis is joining us again, technical director of the BAR team. Jeff, you were talking about getting ahead of Olivier Panis, and looking at the timing screens, you're 7th now with Villeneuve, Panis is 8th. It seems to work for you.
That's right. You can see the difference that Jack was able, by being in front of Jensen, to run 1 extra lap. We had to stop Jensen first, and that enabled him to jump Panis. So we're happy with 1. We'll have to see what we can do with getting past Panis.
Jensen's just done a very slow lap, a 1:29.9. Any ideas what that's about, Jeff?
We have heard he has a problem with second gear, but we've got to confirm that.
Okay, well that's quite a bit slower, isn't it? So that seems like you might have a few gremlins developing there.
He lost it all in the first sector, yes, we need to see where that is.
Well, let's hope there's no too many problems. Just looking at the stops of Williams and Ferrari, Jeff, what do you conclude? Who took on how much fuel, and how far apart are they going to be for their second stops, do you think, Michael Schumacher and Juan Montoya?
We think Michael's going to stop about 2 laps later than Montoya, probably lap 34 rather than lap 32, according to our calculations.
So he's looking pretty strong at the moment, then?
I would think so, yes.
OK, thanks for joining us, Jeff. We'll speak to you again a little bit later on after the second round of pit stops. Well, he thinks that Schumacher's in the box seats. Certainly looks that way at the moment, but Montoya's not letting him get away.
It's not over by a long way at the moment. They've just the three of them, Michael Schumacher, Montoya, Barrichello, just all lapped within 100th of a second, the three of them together. Nothing between them. The gap still 2.4 seconds back to Montoya. I can't quite understand the McLarens. They're really hurting at the moment. They're now back some 7/10 of a second off the pace. There's Raikkonen. They both had a bad lap a while back, clearly in some traffic. Coulthard too. He's falling a bit back from Raikkonen now, 4 seconds adrift. So at this stage, for some reason, the McLarens, hopefully we can go and, although McLaren don't give too much away to our pit crew, our F1 ITV team, but clearly McLaren's not working well at the moment, James.
No, indeed not. Well, the margin on the grid between Michael Schumacher and Juan Montoya was 5/100ths of a second, the time it takes to blink an eye, literally. And he went close, or closer still. The last lap, they were 1,000th of a second apart in their pace. That is the level of intensity of competition at the front to win this World Championship, and in the short term to win the Italian Grand Prix. We ride on board then with the reigning world champion leading at Monza in front of over 60,000 very passionate Italians who've come here not just hoping for victory but expecting it, carrying the hopes of a nation on his shoulders. It's been a rough summer for the Ferrari team, but judging by their performance yesterday and again here today, they certainly look as though they're back. But Martin, there's a lot of people say it's important for Schumacher to win this race this weekend because Williams are expected to be quite a bit stronger in 2 weeks' time in Indianapolis.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. I mean, we all thought they would be stronger here in Monza, although, of course, Ferrari did have a very solid test last week. And I think the Michelin teams have definitely been slightly destabilised by having to come up with that new tyre last week instead of fine-tuning their car. But I tell you what, Michael Schumacher looks an awful lot more comfortable and less near the ragged edge than this man Montoya. Montoya giving it absolutely everything, and super speed there through the exit of Ascari. But at the moment, you do sense that it's easier for Michael than Juan Pablo.
When you say easy, you mean the car is handling better for him, it's under him more?
Yeah, well, you just watch him going into the chicanes. He's launching it into the chicanes, catching it as it's sliding on the way in and really wringing its neck. And it's down to 1.8 seconds now, the lead, so it's working. But he knows he's got to do that. He lost out in the first part of the Grand Prix. He didn't make it past Michael, that brilliant attempt down into the second chicane. But then he had the wrong setup on the car, but now he's got his chance. Ted is down in the pits.
Yes, and it's bad news, I'm afraid, from BAR. We heard that Jenson Button had lost second gear. He's now lost another gear. They think it's fourth. The bad thing is that the team reckon that this is actually part of a larger problem, whether that's hydraulics. They're not telling me, but it is part of perhaps a race-ending problem. We'll keep you posted.
Losing one gear is very careless. Losing two is absolutely, but nothing he can do about it. We saw him being passed there, and the problem with these sequential boxes, where you just we've got an auto upshift, it has to pass through all the gears. So you can't. In the old days, when you had a stick shift, you could, as you often had to do at Monaco when you lost a gear or two, you could protect the gearbox. Now you can't protect the gearbox anymore.
Lap 25 then, Michael Schumacher, 1.8 seconds now only, the margin ahead of Juan Montoya. There you can see it. The Colombian is closing down. That last lap, half a second he took out of Michael Schumacher's lead. Barrichello third, Raikkonen fourth, Coulthard is still fifth, having a quiet afternoon, but still scoring important points and protecting his teammate ahead of him. And as Ted was predicting, Jenson Button, and right on cue, there he is, coming into the pits. And that's a shame for Jenson, after such a strong qualifying performance, to have to come in. But nevertheless, teammate Villeneuve still looks, at the moment, OK for 2 World Championship points. He's in 7th place, just behind Marc Genet.
So finally then, Raikkonen has got onto the leader's pace. He's now 13.6 seconds behind in 4th. Coulthard still struggling. We think they fueled him a little bit longer, a longer stop. But that is Montoya hacksawing away at the wheel, back end bouncing, engine on the rev limiter as he's got his foot buried in the floor, trying to catch that very skinny rear wing of Michael Schumacher's Ferrari. You can visibly see the difference in the aero levels of those two cars, and you see a much bigger profile on the rear wing. There's a good shot of it, of the Williams, and I think they might just be regretting that. There are 4 speed traps around this circuit, and Montoya doesn't appear in the top 6 of any of them. They're carrying too much rear wing on that Williams.
Yep, it's harming their straight line speed. The wing slows it down, creates a little bit more drag, but does tend to protect the rear tyres a little bit and give the driver a bit more stability under braking. But to make a pass, he's got to be close enough in the first place to launch one. At the moment, he's taking a couple of tenths a lap out of Michael Schumacher, another couple there. 1.6 now the margin. It's not for want of trying, though, on the part of Juan Montoya. Martin, just characterise for me the two drivers as you see them then. Michael Schumacher, obviously enormous experience. Montoya doesn't lack experience either over in the US. He certainly had plenty of that. But the way they go about their business in Formula One, the way they're approaching this race and this championship, how do you see them, the differences?
Well, I'd imagine Michael is slightly more approaching this slightly more technically probably than Juan Pablo Montoya, just from what you hear as they pass the Renault of Alonso, which has had a number of dramas. He's back in 13th. Somewhat scarily, he did carry on with that car, despite losing loads of bits from underneath it. So, but I think Juan Pablo Montoya is more of a seat-of-the-pants style driver, and he lets the team probably set the car up more for him and work out. I would imagine Michael's more closely involved in the weekend, the strategy and the general process of going Grand Prix racing. But I think Montoya, his style gives him the chance then to, it's like water off a duck's back, this pressure.
Nothing much choosing between them in speed.
Not at all. Different style, but same net result.
So Schumacher leading as we complete lap 27. You can see a super slow-mo of the cars cannoning off the chicanes. That's the kind of punishment they're taking every single lap of the 53 here at Monza. Montoya now just 1.3 behind with traffic they're approaching shortly. Barrichello, Raikkonen, Coulthard and Genet, the top 6.
What great value this is. Schumacher versus Montoya for the race and the championship. Coming up on some traffic here. Juan has battled so hard to make up time on Michael at the front, and a lot of that time could be lost so quickly in this traffic, Neil.
Most certainly, and it doesn't take much of an interruption to take away your rhythm, affect you by a 100th or 2 or a 10th or 2, and it can really impact on the net gap between the cars. Equally, if you get a little toe like Montoya just got then, that can have a positive effect. Incidentally, Webber is in 10th position at the moment, inside a second from Frentzen. He's about 10 seconds adrift from being in the points, so despite his own prediction that it might be tough to get into those points today, it is a possibility, and we apologise, we've lost effects, sound effects that is, from Monza, and we'll restore those as soon as possible. But this battle between first and second continues to intensify as Montoya wrings the neck of the Williams.
Ryan, interesting comments from Martin Brundle about just that, the fact that Montoya is driving completely differently to Michael at the moment, whether it's the setup, whether it's the style of the driver. Do you find that interesting to watch when you look at these guys?
Yeah, well, I think Schumacher is definitely a lot more technical. He knows a lot more about setting up the car and stuff. But I think Montoya's just out there to wring the neck of his car, and you know, it looks like he's really doing that at the moment.
He's very good at that. He's a classic, Neil. He's made some comments over this course of this season which make you wonder sometimes. I know he's a bit blasé occasionally, but he sort of leaves it up to the crew and doesn't admit to knowing much at all about the car at times, does he?
No, he's kind of a shoulder shrugger sometimes, but by gee, he can drive hard.
Absolutely.
Keep in mind, he's had 2 pole positions at this racetrack, and he was the winner in 2001. As we take you back to ITV, Martin and James for the Italian Grand Prix.
Lap 29 of 53 here at the Italian Grand Prix at Monza. Jos Verstappen there coasting into the pitch, but look how close Juan Montoya now is to the back of Michael Schumacher. He's clawed the gap down over the last few laps, and it's now under a second as they cross the line to begin lap 30. Verstappen, you see, in the pits, under braking there into the first chicane. Look how much Montoya is able to close up to the back of the Ferrari of Michael Schumacher. Then, as the Ferrari accelerates away, the gap grows again. A concertina effect. But I'll tell you something, these two guys are both absolutely on the limit. The World Championship is at stake. This race is at stake. So much is at stake, and they are flying.
Yes, when I said he's carrying too much rear wing, I didn't explain that properly. It's too much rear wing for a very good high top speed, but it's certainly helping him under braking, as we explained at the beginning of the programme. And now he's got the balance he wants. Now they were able to change that front wing at the pit stop. Montoya is attacking the racetrack. Michael can just about respond, but I haven't seen any sign of Schumacher getting ragged, have you? He's pushing hard, but he's not ragged at the moment. It's still Montoya looking the one working the hardest, but he's got the fastest car. Louise is down with Jenson Button.
Jenson, Jeff Willis has been keeping us updated on your gearbox problems as the race has been going on, but at what point did you realise it was going to become a terminal problem?
Well, as soon as you lose one gear, it's normally a problem, because you start stripping the others as you go through the box. And I love second gear, then first gear, which on this circuit is pretty difficult anyway, because you've got two first gear and a second gear corner. But I had to just pull the clutch in third gear, and then I lost sixth and seventh gear as well.
Big disappointment for you, but things are looking a bit brighter for Jacques.
Yeah, it's looking good. I mean, he was able to get a good start. I had a problem with my launch control, which again is very, very disappointing. But no, he's in seventh, and it's very, very good. We need to have some points here. We need to stay in front of the Toyotas and Jaguars, and this is doing a good job.
Thanks, Jens.
Gap now up to 1.3 seconds. This is an absolute head-to-head. Barrichello slipped back. There he is. He's now 6 seconds behind the leading duo. Raikkonen holding at about 13 seconds behind Michael Schumacher. So Raikkonen can't, I don't think, win the race. He's just got to minimise the damage this afternoon. Coulthard still in a solid 5th. We think Barrichello's pitting at the end of this lap, so we're in then for what will be the second scheduled and final stops of the afternoon. For this Grand Prix is just disappearing, isn't it? It's incredible. We're on lap 31 already.
Well, they were talking about this possibly being the fastest Grand Prix of all time. That record held for a Grand Prix back here in 1971. Peter Gethin, the winner there. And we will see if the average speed this afternoon beats it. The way they're going at the front, you'd have to suspect it's going to fall. Michael Schumacher, though, has managed to claw back a little bit of ground on Montoya. You can see 1.2 seconds the margin now. A bit more comfort for Schumacher as Barrichello pits from 3rd place.
Well, he really did attack that speed line. It looks like he just about got it slowed down enough. I think Barrichello can get in there and really help Michael now. Too much of a deficit on the pit stop, but he's got to keep push, because if there's a sticky wheel on the Williams, or the fuel nozzle's not quite right, or something like that, suddenly Barrichello can be in there inflicting some major damage on this man Montoya. The gap down to 1.2 seconds. We think Genet is now pitting in the sister Williams from what is 6th place, 29 seconds adrift.
Well, we haven't seen too much of Marc Genet so far this afternoon, replacing Ralf Schumacher, who's gone back to Salzburg, complaining of a headache after the first qualifying session. Genet stepping in, did a terrific job to get 5th on the grid. As Olivier Panis comes into the pits, he's in the last of the points-paying positions at the moment in 8th place. He's fairly comfortable there. Heinz-Harald Frentzen is his nearest challenger, and he was 10 seconds behind Panis before this round of pit stops. So Panis looking good to score points again for Toyota here this afternoon, as into the pits comes the Williams.
And it's Montoya that's pitted. Montoya pits then. So from what was 2nd place, here we go. This is a crucial stop. World Championships are going to be hanging on these pit stops this year now. He's ready to go, but the fuel isn't yet. Solid stop, not spectacular. Panis also pitted in the Toyota at that time. So now, when will Michael Schumacher stop? They must have short-filled Montoya slightly then on that first round of stops.
Well, we heard Jeff Willis when we were speaking to him a while ago saying he reckoned that Schumacher had 2 laps more fuel, as we look at Coulthard making his stop. So these next 2 laps, absolutely critical for Michael Schumacher. This is where he needs to build the margin for victory. He was under a lot of pressure. He had Montoya breathing down his neck throughout the middle stint of this race, and he wants to make things a little bit more comfortable for himself. This is where he's got to do it, but unfortunately for him, he's got a bit of traffic to negotiate. Should pass that Sauber down the back straight before the Parabolica corner, although he is quite a long way back going onto the straight. We will see. But Heidfeld getting the message that he's got the race leader behind him, and he is not in a mood to be hanging around.
Well, Ferrari team will hope that the team they supply engines to don't hinder their man. Heidfeld, fellow countryman of Michael Schumacher, literally getting out of the way, but giving Michael a tremendous tow down the pit straight. And it's a 1:22.1 for Michael. A lot of blue smoke down there at the first chicane. Somebody's obviously recently locked up. But a solid lap from Michael, a good lap, but he probably wished he could have been 3 or 4 tenths quicker there. And this is, as you said, James, his chance to start pumping them in.
Well, it certainly has gone quickly, this Grand Prix. I'm sure for Michael Schumacher, it can't. The checkered flag cannot come quickly enough. He really does want the 10 points and the enormous sense of relief which would accompany it after such a difficult summer for him and the Ferrari team, having been on top in the World Championship since the Canadian Grand Prix, to see everybody else closing up so much. With Montoya just a point behind and Raikkonen 2 points behind. That's not the kind of zone that he wants to be in. He wants to put some breathing space, quite literally, between himself and his pursuers. And 2 points today, if he can come first with Montoya second, that would do the business for Michael. A little bit more space for him. And Ferrari getting ready in the pit lane.
So that's Genet ahead of Montoya. Montoya stopped for the second time, of course. There's the reason for that. And of course now Montoya's got the fuel load. He'll be about a second and a quarter down. So how much longer has he got to run with this heavy fuel load before Michael comes in and takes on a similar fuel load? And there is the answer. Schumacher in the pits now. Did he get held up in any way behind that Minardi? Because the gap was 1.2 seconds before this all started for the second scheduled stops of the afternoon. Oh, it seems like an eternity when you're sitting there, but Michael's so calm, not revving, not pushing to get away, and Raikkonen pits from second place. Ted.
Well, here we go. Kimi Raikkonen was about 2 seconds ahead of Rubens Barrichello when Rubens pitted. Is he going to jump him on this one? It's going to be touch and go. Fuel going in. Kimi's on the limiter. Let's see what's happened. Oh, 9.5. Where's Montoya and Michael, though?
Well, Montoya's side by side with Michael on the road to the first corner, and he's got him. Juan Montoya has got ahead of Michael Schumacher through the second round of pit stops. Absolutely incredible for the BMW Williams driver, and the TV only picked it up right at the last minute. We thought he perhaps had a margin to do it, and he's done it. He's got ahead.
I think Michael got held up down there on the way in behind the Minardi, and noticed there was a Minardi trundling out behind him in the pits as well. Did he get held up? No criticism of Minardi there. They're entitled to do exactly what they need to do for their pit stop. But clearly, with traffic, not a spectacular in-lap. Montoya hasn't had brilliant laps, so Michael lost some time somewhere, no doubt about it, James. Now he is steering at the rear wing of the Williams. And we're making sure we're looking at the right Williams, yeah, because it's the wrong... We got the right Williams there, because Genet is in the action too.
No, I think you might be right. I think it might be Genet, in fact, that's in front of him. Let's just check this. The computer has not told us here at Monza which is which. Very difficult to tell the two helmets apart. There is Genet, there is Michael Schumacher, there is Montoya. Beg your pardon, all those of you watching back at home. It was a very late call, as I say on the TV. The picture switching across, and Michael Schumacher is still in front of Juan Montoya.
Okay, well, that explains then he didn't lose any time much, because he needed to have lost about 1.3 seconds plus 2 extra laps where Montoya was carrying the heavier fuel load. So it was Genet that was down there into the first corner, slightly out of schedule on his stops, and therefore Michael Schumacher still leads the Grand Prix by 1.6 seconds.
Yesterday morning when they went out for the pre-practice, I was looking at the two helmets and thinking they're very similar. I hope it doesn't catch us out tomorrow. And there you are. They are very, very similar indeed. Anyway, Michael Schumacher leading by 1.6 seconds then from Juan Montoya. Genet has made his pit stop. He was in third place. Barrichello fourth. Raikkonen fifth. Coulthard sixth. Heinz-Harald Frentzen has made a stop as well. He is dropping down the order now. Villeneuve will be coming back up to attain his 7th place again, with Panis in 8th. So all as you were very much here at Monza after the 2nd round of stops.
Heidfeld was in P7 when he came in.
Well, Jeff Willis is joining us, the BAR technical director. Thanks for joining us again, Jeff. How's it looking?
Oh, it's looking quite good at the moment for Jacques. We got the stop just right. We're about 2 seconds quicker on our stop, and we did the right strategy, stopping later. Very disappointing with Jensen. We'll look into what the problem is, but it's pretty frustrating. We think both cars were good here.
Well, 2 points today for you would be a real boost in the Constructors' Championship, wouldn't it?
It's very important that we score more points than either Jaguar or Toyota. It's very important to us.
Well, it looks like Toyota have hit some problems there, Jeff, just as you were talking. I don't know if you saw the picture, but Olivier Panis there looks like he's coasting, and 8th place going out the window for him.
I saw him slow. Yes, I'm not quite sure. It hasn't come back to him.
Thank you, Jeff. We got a straight fight on our hands now, because Montoya then once again beginning to close Michael Schumacher down, just clipping a 10th or 2 here and there. Barrichello out of the picture, 13 seconds adrift. Raikkonen is just a second behind Rubens Barrichello, so worked out well in the stops there. Raikkonen needs to get ahead of Barrichello. Barrichello, instead of sort of trying to get some points off Montoya, is going to have to work hard now to keep points away from Raikkonen. So there's a good squabble going on for 3rd and 4th places. Let's have a look at this lap. At the moment, Montoya, it was even Stevens, just a fractions in it. Still the gap is 1.3 then. How is he going to catch him? We think he might be able to pass him under braking. Michael's got the faster car in a straight line, but with a good tow and the BMW engine behind him, if Montoya can get in to the draft, into the zone behind Michael's car where he's punching a hole in the air, surely he'll have a chance under braking. It's going to be very close to the end of this Grand Prix. There is the battle for 3rd and 4th between Barrichello and Kimi Raikkonen. Raikkonen needs those points.
You can see the Minardi in front. Traffic always a big factor here. He moves smartly out of the way to let them through. To the 2nd chicane then goes Barrichello, with Raikkonen right behind him, and the points absolutely critical all the way through the field. Raikkonen, a championship contender, don't forget, and a big job here then for Rubens Barrichello to help Michael Schumacher by keeping him behind him.
Right now, Michael Schumacher has a 3-point lead in the championship, but on track, it is the barest of threads as Montoya reels him in again. Big disadvantage, though, for Kimi Raikkonen, because he is a lot further down the order. There he is, behind Barrichello, and that, at the moment, is protecting Michael, giving him what would be a 7-point championship lead. 10 plays 5 in the race, and another 2 that he's got already.
There's been a couple of spikes in Rubens' lap times to the negative. They've actually been quite slow, and we wondered in here whether in fact he did have a problem, but he's restored his pace again to the mid-23s. We actually went through a sequence not so long back, Bill, where there were 5 or 6 cars all recording within the 10th of a second about a 22.5, which was extraordinary. So many cars to be so close. Incidentally, Webber is still frantically working at the back of Frentzen. He's 9th at the moment, Frentzen 8th, so on the verge of a point. Some suggestion that he might have actually had a lunge at him about 15 or 20 minutes ago, and then he lost some ground on him, but he's back now to within a couple of seconds and closing.
Ryan, what's it like? You work to get those tenths of a second. You get on the back of somebody, like a Michael Schumacher, and then you have to get around him. That's the next thing, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, with these long straights, normally passing is a possibility, but it's never easy, you know. But you just got to work at it, put pressure on the guy in front of you, and try to make him make a mistake.
Well, they've got traffic to contend with as well. There's Mark Webber just out of the points, as Neil pointed out. 15 cars running, although Olivier Panis had a lot of trouble there on the Toyota. We'll return to our commentary. Martin Brundle and James Allen.
Lap 40 of the 53-lap Italian Grand Prix. We're into traffic here for the race leaders, Michael Schumacher and Juan Montoya. You've missed nothing, but Michael Schumacher just lapped Heinz-Harald Frentzen, and Frentzen got in the way of Montoya into the second chicane. It was one of those unfortunate bits of timing. It wasn't really Frentzen's fault, but he just came across him at the wrong moment, and it's taken Montoya far, far longer to get past Frentzen than he would have liked. He was 1.2 seconds behind the race leader at the beginning of this lap, and that, you can see, has really cost him.
Yeah, he lost over a second in the middle sector alone, so really that might be a bit of a pivotal lap this afternoon. With not passing Michael in the early stages there on the down at the second chicane. A great epic duel we saw in the first lap of this Grand Prix, certainly the first part of it. But now the gap is 2.3 seconds there. That really did hurt Montoya, and he's now got to charge all over again. And we know he can only edge back a tenth or two at a time, and he ran in a bit deep. Bit of frustration creeping in there now from Montoya. He knows that cost him dearly.
Schumacher leads Montoya, then 2.3 seconds the margin. He's added just over a second on that lap. Barrichello third. He's 15 seconds behind the race leader, with Raikkonen right behind him. There you can see them. That's the battle for third and fourth places. The final slot on the podium. Barrichello, last year's winner here at Monza, looking to get up onto the podium again. And, well, he's certainly going about it the right way at the moment. Coulthard is fifth, and Marc Genet, who got involved in that tussle at the front after the second round of stops. We thought it might have been Montoya getting in front of Michael Schumacher after those second stops. It was, in fact, Genet who's made his second stop himself, and he is back into sixth place. And Ted has some news for us.
I tell you what, James, there's a suspicion down here at Williams and McLaren that Michael Schumacher has got brake problems. Of course, he took all that wing off, so he's got major high speeds, and slowing down is obviously going to be a problem from that. They've noticed excessive dust coming out of those brake ducts. Ferrari, of course, aren't saying anything, but let's see, maybe Montoya might be able to get him under braking.
Yeah, there certainly is a lot of black dust. You don't know the materials that they're using necessarily are the same as the Williams in terms of the pad and the disc, but no doubt about it, there is a plume of black dust coming from the brakes every time Michael hits the pedal. At the moment, he's got a lead of 3.2 seconds now, so Montoya had a second difficult lap. We saw him go a bit deep into turn one and lost himself some time. Coulthard now coming under a lot of pressure from Marc Genet in their fifth and sixth. Coulthard's had a 2 or 3 very slow laps, whether he's beginning to, not very slow, but clearly not fully on the pace lap. So at the moment, a couple of battles shaping up, 3 in the top 6. So Montoya still with a chance against Michael Schumacher. Barrichello just edging away from Raikkonen for third and fourth. Coulthard and Genet squabbling over fifth and sixth. Now just 2.7 between them.
And you can see that the top 6 place is filled by both cars from the top 3 teams in Formula 1. All once again, the reliability of the leading teams seems to be pretty remarkable. That was an interesting scene. Looked like Flavio Briatore from Renault talking with some of the Mercedes McLaren people up on the timing wall. I wonder what they were having a chat about. Certainly it's not been a great day for the Renault team. Jarno Trulli is out of the Grand Prix. He retired right at the very beginning, first lap, and Fernando Alonso is a lap down in 11th place. We haven't seen much of him since he took half of the floor off his car, but he is still circulating, albeit a couple of seconds off the pace.
It's taken something away from Montoya. That lap where his charge was halted by the moment of having to lap Frentzen, he's now lost another 0.4 of a second. Suddenly Montoya hasn't got the pace. It really did break his rhythm up. What a shame for us in terms of watching this Grand Prix. But now Michael with a 3.6 second lead.
Well, certainly Montoya won't be giving up. He'll know that there's traffic in the shape here, for example, of Zolt Baumgartner standing in for Ralph Furman in the Jordan team. He'll know that that might take a little bit out of Michael Schumacher's lead. He needs to be harrying the Ferrari driver all the way. He's now got ahead of the Jordan, you can see, and that's another car for Montoya to get past.
Yes, I don't think Michael passed the Jordan as cleanly as he would normally have liked to have done, and he had to follow him through the Lesmos. But how are we doing on this lap? Still Michael's, it's even Stevens on the first 2 sectors, but as you say, James, there's another back marker now for him to pass. So now we've had 6 retirees: Panis, Verstappen, Button, De Matter, both Toyotas out, then Wilson and Trulli.
Yeah, just outside the points positions then, outside the top 6. Villeneuve is 7th still for BAR, so that's going to be a very important result for them If he can hold on to that, that will really put them in a very strong position to hold on to 5th place in the Constructors' Championship, as it looks like Toyota aren't going to score any points today. But if anything happens to Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who is currently 8th and on target to score 1 point, then Mark Webber is ready to pounce in the Jaguar. He's 9th at the moment, just a couple of seconds behind Frentzen. And we've seen that the Aussie is, has a never-say-die spirit when it comes to the end of Grand Prix, particularly if there are points at stake. So he may well have a go in the closing stages. Heidfeld is 10th, Alonso 11th, Fisichella 12th, Baumgartner is in 13th, and Chiesa in the Minardi 14th.
That's interesting, isn't it? Still Montoya not past the Jordan. And he's may clear him, but it's still compromise his entry. No, he still hasn't passed him. Look, yes, the Jordan gets out of the way, but it compromised Montoya's entry. You hesitate. Is he going to get out of my way or not? And so you still lose time, and it's just not working out in the traffic for Montoya. And there then is the scrap for 5th and 6th between Coulthard and Genet, down to just 1.2 seconds. Coulthard struggling for pace at this stage. Genet, well, the quickest man on the racetrack last time around.
Yep, certainly pushing very hard. Super sub. There was some talk yesterday. Frank Williams was saying he wasn't 100% sure that Ralf Schumacher would be fit for Indianapolis in 2 weeks' time. But we heard Ted Kravitz speaking before to Sam Michael, the chief engineer at Williams, saying they were pretty confident this morning, having heard from Ralf by phone from Salzburg, that he was feeling a lot better, and very confident that he will be back in the car for the Indianapolis Grand Prix. Certainly it's very important from a Constructors' Championship point of view, although Genet doing a fine job here in 6th place at the moment, and they're really closing down David Coulthard.
Yeah, well, he's just playing fast. I mean, Michael's doing 22.9 again in that lap, and Genet doing a 22.8. Raikkonen and Coulthard pretty similar actually in the 2 McLaren, so Genet's just playing faster at this stage of the Grand Prix. If it stays like this at the moment, there it's coming up on the screen, that finishing order, Michael Schumacher will lead the World Championship with 82 points compared to Montoya's 79, Raikkonen 75, so it's not working well for Raikkonen. Montoya still easily in the hunt, as indeed will Raikkonen be, but it's looking very strong for Michael, isn't it? He just needs to make sure that Barrichello stays that 1.5 seconds ahead of Kimi Raikkonen at the moment.
So we're getting into the closing stages then of the Italian Grand Prix. A few questions still unanswered. Can Marc Genet pass David Coulthard? Can Kimi Raikkonen pass Rubens Barrichello? And has Montoya still got anything left to try and close down Michael Schumacher?
Here at the Italian Grand Prix, and he's bolting out of that car as well. No more pit stops for these guys as we go back to the enormous demands on the car and the driver, Ryan Briscoe. You've driven at this circuit in an F1 car.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great circuit to go around in the F1, and as you can see there in the second chicane, you just got to bounce the car over the curbs as much as you can, and it's brutally harsh on the car, but they seem to hold up.
Neil, they talked about possible brake problems for Michael Schumacher. I think Juan's in a far inferior position at the moment. There's definitely some problems there. He's drifted out. He's lost 3 seconds in the last couple of laps.
The pivotal moment in all that process, Billy, was lap 42 when he tripped over Heinz-Harald Frentzen, and then he seems to have had the wrong bounce of the ball thereafter. Jordan got in the way, and just it's been a rhythmic thing. And I think you know, when you've got a car that you've been driving at or even fractionally over the limit, and something breaks your rhythm and it just puts those vital tenths or even seconds between you and the other guy, you then stretch a little harder to try and get it back, and that's when the little mistakes creep in. Webber, meanwhile, is now lapping just fractionally faster, about half a second a lap faster than Frentzen, and he's got the margin down to a fraction over 1 second with now just 7 laps remaining.
Well, Juan has minimised the damage in terms of championship points. If he can hold second, it's still close with 2 rounds to go, but the big question is, can Raikkonen nail Barrichello and stay within striking distance himself? That is probably the best dice, and certainly one of the most critical still going as we come to the closing laps of this Italian Grand Prix. There's the gap between first and second, but let's watch the gap between third and fourth as we return to our regular commentary.
Lap 47 here at Monza, and Michael Schumacher, who's been matched so closely throughout the race with Juan Montoya, appears to have broken his spirit now. And here is David Coulthard in trouble.
Coulthard with some kind of technical problem pulls into the end of the pit lane. The marshals will then wheel that away. Coulthard out of the race. Genet up to 5th. Villeneuve 6th. Frentzen 7th then now. And Webber in the Jaguar will be in the final points-paying position. Montoya now 7 seconds adrift. He just lost something in a crucial lap there and lost momentum, and Michael now just driving off into the distance. He's not under pressure from Barrichello in 3rd, and Raikkonen can't quite get back on the terms with. And there's another replay then of Coulthard getting out of the car. So the Grand Prix is not quite developed, has it, James? It's sort of threatened to be thrilling, and it looked like Montoya was really coming at Michael for a closing grand finale, and suddenly that's petered away. Raikkonen can't quite get on terms with Barrichello, and we were looking for a good scrap between Coulthard and Genet, and Coulthard's car breaks down. So sadly, not really developing into a classic, although a pretty tense race. Montoya's driven well, but you have to say Michael Schumacher always looked the man slightly more under control.
Yeah, he soaked up the pressure right from the start. The run down to turn 1, he got alongside Montoya. He kept his nerve. Montoya was side by side with him through the first chicane. Michael Schumacher was ahead there, but then Montoya had a major go at him into the second chicane on the opening lap. Michael Schumacher gave him room. They didn't touch. Terrific driving by both of them, and they both came through, but with Michael Schumacher in front and Montoya second. And since then, he's tried a few things. The strategy, you'd have to say, looks like it played out really more in Michael Schumacher's favour slightly than it did in Montoya's, but there was really nothing in it. And through the first and second round of pit stops, Michael Schumacher able to maintain his advantage over Montoya. Barrichello, he's done his job this afternoon. 3rd for Ferrari, taking points away from Kimi Raikkonen in the World Championship. Certainly not down to a 2-horse race now, that's for sure, but it's a lot tighter than it was. And Barrichello now coming up behind Heinz-Harald Frentzen, the man who just got in the way at that very chicane of Juan Montoya at a critical moment when he was closing down Michael Schumacher. And somehow since then, Montoya has not had the speed in the car. Something broke in his spirit, his desire to chase down Michael Schumacher. Who knows? Perhaps there was a technical problem, but either way, he seems to have settled now for second place.
Barrichello's hand coming out of the cockpit saying, get this guy out of my way. I'm in a big fight here with Raikkonen. And he believes, and they've passed a lot of blue flag stations, he believes that Frentzen should have just eased off, which he's now doing, and letting them through. I would expect another gesticulation, and indeed he gets one from Rubens Barrichello, who's not at all happy. Man who's driving beautifully in the second part of this race, looked a bit outpaced in the beginning, is Marc Genet in 5th place. He's the only man in the 1:22s, quite a bit quicker now than anybody else. Unfortunately for him, he's 11 seconds adrift of this battle between Barrichello and Raikkonen. The gap down to just 1 second now. And Louise is with David Coulthard.
David, something on your car obviously gave up on you. There, any idea what it was?
Well, clearly it was engine, but not entirely sure whether it was a failure in the engine or whether it was the electronics, because it didn't tighten and there's no smoke. But it lost what felt like spark, so it could have been a problem at the top end, but it could be electronic as well.
McLaren just didn't seem to have the pace today to keep up with the front runners, the Williams and the Ferraris. Were you surprised at that?
Yeah, after the test, I was surprised because all 3 days the car felt better than it did this weekend. I think both Kimi and myself during the race there, I was pretty much alone, but I was just driving every lap wondering where the balance had gone that we had. We had a car in the race which had quite a lot of oversteer, which makes it difficult to attack the corners, drop some wing out at the pit stop, and even then it was quite oversteering. So track conditions have changed obviously since last week, but something else has moved as well.
Thanks, David.
13 runners left then, 7 out of the Grand Prix, and all 3 Brits that started this race. Ralph Furman not starting, of course, so all 3 Brits now out of it. Coulthard, Wilson and Button have retired. It's not a classic Italian Grand Prix for British Grand Prix drivers, that's for sure.
No, it's not, but it's certainly a day BAR will remember, and Jacques Villeneuve. We haven't hardly seen him at all all afternoon, but if they stay where they are, BAR will be 5th in the World Championship Constructors with 18 points. Jaguar Mark Webber today looks like he's going to score a point in 8th place. and they'll be on 16 points in 6th place. Toyota not scoring here this afternoon, and certainly from Villeneuve's point of view, it's been a terrible year, but he had 3 points going into this Grand Prix, and if he stays where he is now, he'll have another 3. He'll double his tally. And a lot of stories about him for next year. Jacques Villeneuve, he's been telling people he might not be in the car for the Japanese Grand Prix, but it may well just be a bit of grandstanding as the negotiations go on for next year. And certainly quite a lot of Italian sources seem to think that Villeneuve will stay in that team. They're just having a very, very tough negotiation.
It's difficult to know in those circumstances. You don't really know the details, what goes on behind closed doors, and there's all sorts of information and misinformation that's let slip as a negotiating tool, whatever, but quite clearly it's not a done deal yet. Ted is down there.
Yeah, just down at Ferrari. They say they haven't got any concerns about the brake wear on Michael Schumacher's car. Nothing concerning is coming across on the telemetry. But remember how easy Michael is on his brakes. Remember in Canada, the team were amazed that he managed to make them last for the whole of the race. So he will be helping that problem if there is a problem.
Well, he looks pretty comfortable at the moment. Just 2 laps remaining here at Monza as he goes into the second chicane, up over the curbs, picking up the speed down 60 miles an hour on the exit there, up to over 130, then into the Lesmo corners. This is where his brother Ralph had a big accident in testing last week, the one that's put him out of this weekend's Grand Prix. And Michael Schumacher now just over 5 miles away from victory at Monza. It would be his 4th here, and most important of all, certainly as far as Ferrari are concerned, it would give him a breathing space in the World Championship, and it would be his 50th victory for the great Mark. What a milestone that would be, what a party it would be if he can just hold on. He's got 7.5 seconds advantage over Juan Montoya. There is the Colombian. He tried very, very hard in the early stages of the Grand Prix, but he just didn't have enough when it mattered, but I'm sure he'll be bouncing back at Indianapolis in a couple of weeks' time. There's Villeneuve, you see, just going through the shot as well. He's a lap down, so next time Michael Schumacher crosses the line, Villeneuve will be safe. And the Ferrari mechanics then all up on the pit wall, ready to celebrate. A little bit prematurely, perhaps. There's still another 3.5 miles to go.
Well, there certainly was a lot of black dust coming out of the Ferrari, but as I say, it depends on the materials of the pads and discs, and it's not always indicative, but I'm sure they're pretty relieved to be able to drop 2.5 seconds a lap now and just coast towards the last sort of 6-7 laps of this Grand Prix as they have done. Now the final one is in front of them. They've got a 7-second advantage. Barrichello maintaining a 1.1 advantage over Raikkonen. So it's a pretty perfect day for Ferrari, isn't it? If they could have just got Barrichello ahead of Montoya, it would have been absolutely perfect. And nonetheless, Michael Schumacher crucially kept the lead, didn't he, on that first lap. That was a key part of the afternoon, so he could stretch it out and make Montoya be the man who had to do the work. He had track position, controlled the race, and never looked flustered, even when Montoya was really closing him down, sometimes 3/4 of a second per lap. Looking forward to the press conference to understand why, what broke Montoya's rhythm, spirit, or whatever it was.
Just listen then to the crowd as Michael Schumacher comes out of the Parabolica. Yes! He punched the air yesterday when he got pole position. That was part of the job done. But this afternoon, he has absolutely done the business. He's fended off Juan Montoya. And let's face it, it was a stiff challenge. Michael Schumacher wins at Monza, the 4th time he has won here in a Ferrari. And it's his 50th victory for the Italian Mark. And what an important one.
Yes, it's win number 69 overall for him. And I think you're right, James, one of the more important ones. I mean, he really has been under pressure. Lapped at the last Grand Prix, nowhere off the pace, totally off the pace, really. Looking, it's probably one of his most lacklustre Grand Prix, actually, the Hungarian Grand Prix 3 weeks ago. But today was certainly one of his most mature and inspired drive. He fought his corner when he had to, and certainly a great start. Good pit stops from the team, tremendous reliability as we've come to expect now from Ferrari and Williams, with McLaren always just seeming to have a little gremlin every so often that's holding them back. So for the Constructors' Championship, it's still now looking very close between McLaren and Williams, with Ferrari and Williams and McLaren just fading slightly.
The 7th. Well, all the hard work that was put in by Ferrari. Neil Crompton mentioned the thousands of kilometres of testing, all the hard work put in by Bridgestone as well. They employed all their test drivers, the full weight of their knowledge and their mileage. But Ryan Briscoe, you made a very good point just a moment ago, and Martin Brundle touched on it as well. You cannot underestimate the input of Michael Schumacher in this result. He was like steel out there today.
No, he's very strong, and I think he's by far the strongest driver out there mentally and physically. And, you know, during the race, he just doesn't miss a beat. Just the consistency of it all, he doesn't feel under pressure, and I think that's where that adds up to winning races.
It will be fascinating to hear what Juan Montoya says about how he was broken late in that race, Neil.
It adds up all right. That was his 69th Grand Prix win. Yesterday was his 55th Grand Prix pole position. They're amazing numbers, aren't they?
Unreal.
Now 7 apiece for both poles and wins for Bridgestone and Michelin. Michael also recorded the fastest lap. It was the 4th time this year that he's done that. It's the 7th time this year that Ferrari have recorded a fastest lap. And Ferrari having now recorded 6 Grand Prix wins this year and 7 pole positions. Here's the confirmation, unofficial for the placings. Schumacher, Montoya, Barrichello, Raikkonen, Genet, Villeneuve, Mark Webber in 7th. Excellent performance. So there was a problem there with Frentzen just at the end. You may have caught a little clip of my voice. He was frantically trying to just work that out. Then Alonso, Heidfeld, Fisichella.
And Villeneuve, what a relief for him. You have to go back to round 2, I think it was, round 3. To discover where he last scored points in a race.
You have to give points to Mark Webber, Ryan, for just his gritty, never say die determination. He hangs in there and he races like a absolute Grand Prix hero, doesn't he?
No, he's very good, never gives up, and just keeps pushing until he sees the checkered flag, and it's important.
It certainly has been noticed this year. Quite a few people have mentioned him in dispatches, and that's what you need to do, I guess, because the thing about Formula One is you can be out there in a team knowing that you absolutely cannot win the race. And that is an interesting mindset when you're used to running around, as you are, Ryan, at the moment, winning the majority of Formula 3 races. Then you get up to the big game and you get a drive with a team like Minardi, and then you step up a little bit to Jaguar, but you still know that it's all relative, the performance, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
There's the championship points. It's still a squeeze. Kimi Raikkonen obviously needs to do more in the United States and Japan. Incidentally, just reminding you that Japanese round will be shown as soon as we finish our podium presentations at the Bob Jane T-Marts 1000. So that will be a tremendous climax to the season.
The constructors, by the way, Billy, shows Williams BMW with 141, Ferrari with 137 points, and McLaren Mercedes have got 120 points as Michael now exits the car. Ugly day for Renault, and a pretty tough day also for your guys. I hope they get these gremlins out before you hopefully turn up in one of these things.
Yeah, pretty disappointing for Toyota. I mean, Panos is up in the points. It was looking pretty good, but yeah, not a good day for them.
We haven't seen Michael on the podium for 3 rounds, in fact, and so we look forward to hearing from him. It's been a while, but we'll take a break in the meantime. Well, you could get away with an IQ less than mine, and that's pretty low, to figure out that Ferrari's been under enormous pressure here this week, and that's why they put in all that effort. The reward is there for the fans, the flag waving in pit straight, and very soon we'll have the champagne spraying. Different story when we go away from Europe to the United States and Japan. No testing on those circuits in recent days. Ross Brawn there, I think it is, in the half shadow.
Talking with Bob Constanduros, who does the English speaking on the podium and has followed the series for many years as a commentator.
Or the savagery of the Italian press after the Hungarian Grand Prix can only be compared to their jubilation now. I'd hate to think if Ferrari had not gained the podium in this round.
It's funny how it swings so quickly though, isn't it, Billy? Because it's not that many weeks ago that we were sitting here commenting on the awesome performance from Rubens at the British Grand Prix on another track, you know, with a very high average speed, and you know, Ferrari were totally in the game, and at that stage they were under pressure also from Michelin. Look at this as Schumacher hugs Ross Brawn for his extraordinary technical leadership and efforts in the last couple of weeks since the last Grand Prix in Hungary, and look at the unbelievably passionate Italian fans swamping this race circuit. And they'll declare a national holiday tomorrow, won't they, after the doom and gloom of the last race a few weeks ago.
That is quite the swarm, and this is one of the slowest lead-ins to the podium we've seen. Here we go. They're out.
Heroes.
What a parade this is. Good drive from Barrichello there, decisive drive. Maybe it will count towards the championship in the end, who knows. Camp this week. Luca de Montezemolo made one other interesting comment in that BBC interview, Neil, which you and I both watched this weekend, and that was about team orders. And he did vigorously defend the philosophy of team orders, even though they've been officially banned. He didn't defend the way they were employed last year by this team, but he did say they would use the team to give Michael Schumacher the championship this year in the most legal way possible.
Virtually all, if not all, motor racing teams do. I think what most people objected to was the way they went about it, and that was something that the chairman made mention of in that interview that we saw. And he said these things can happen once, but they cannot happen a second time. And I think that was a fairly accurate comment. There's a man much relieved, and his boss. Huge amount of work since they last raced. But it's not over yet, with the US Grand Prix to come in Indianapolis.
You took the words right out of my mouth. There's a lot of play left.
That's absolutely right, and a lot of hard work for all of these teams. And then the grand finale at Suzuka, Japan, the same day that we have the Bob Jane Team Arts 1000 from Bathurst. It's just out of control over there, isn't it? What a great party scene.
They simply had to win at this circuit. Look at how the chicane twists.
Makes you wonder how these things stay glued together when they take such a pounding, and it's a very aggressive attack and approach, isn't it, Ryan? They just have to literally throw the cars at those chicanes in order to maintain momentum, in order to be able to record a lap time. You cannot. Martin, I think, made the point earlier in the commentary that if you drive around that racetrack and all very lovely and hit the apexes in all the ideal mathematical spots, you just aren't fast enough.
No, I mean, it's a sort of track with those chicanes where you just got to make the least amount of distance possible, and that means just driving straight through them. And the cars being so stiff, they just jump all over the place, but it's the fastest way.
Well, as the crowd roars, we will take a break from Monza. When we come back, we'll hear from the drivers, and I think that'll be very interesting after this race. Well, of course, we've given due credit to that man, Michael Schumacher, but he is really the tip of the iceberg. A massive effort by Ferrari, and the crew can certainly savour this victory. And the two gentlemen sitting beside me know all about that through experience. The crew is so important. If the team aren't pulling their weight, well, you guys find it very difficult out there.
Yes, and it's a massive number of people, particularly in the case of that team. The Ferrari structure is enormous, and you know, Michael is, as you quite rightly described, right at the very point of it, but it cascades down through so many departments. Formula One teams are so rich in their structure, aren't they?
Yeah, it's quite amazing how big a Formula One team is just for, you know, 2 race cars on the track, and you've got sort of over 500 personnel in a team. It's quite amazing, and that's where teamwork is very important.
And Massa, Badoer and Bertie can even share in this because, like you for Toyota, Ryan, they put in plenty of laps to bring that team up to pace.
Yeah, I mean, in the coming up for this Grand Prix, you know, they had 5 cars on track and, you know, for many days, and that's a hell of a lot of testing.
Absolutely. Well, let's hear from the drivers now, and I'm sure they'll want to thank a few people who've been involved in this.
Okay, Michael, this is almost an historic day for you. This is your 50th win also for Ferrari.
Yeah, I think there is many things that come together here. It's quite a while ago we won the last race, first of all. We had tough races behind us. We're not winning, but we failed scoring the points we were thinking to score. And then we had all this summer break and a big push in the team, in the factory, everywhere. Everyone really over the top motivated and giving more than 100% of work, and that's something which is unbelievable. I was able to pay back a little bit with the pole position yesterday, but I think this is one of my greatest days in my career, honestly, and I'm so thankful to everybody in the team because those guys, they have done a tremendous job. Everybody from the test team, every engineer in the factory, down to the lady who is doing the cleaning job. Everybody is just so fantastic. I'm so in love with all those guys. Just big thank you.
Well, by the end, it was a pretty decisive victory for you, but that opening lap was something to remember as well.
Yeah, it was tight already in the first corner. I had a lock-up into the first corner and almost didn't make the chicane. I had the option to go straight on or make the chicane in a sort of not very good way. I thought it's better to do the chicane, although may lose a position, which almost happened then because Juan came on the outside, and we had a nice fight through these 2 corners. Very, very hard, but fair, and I think that's what the people love to see. And in the end, I was able to win that fight for me and run up the lead, which was vital to win the race.
Yes, you got a bit of a gap before that first stop, but in the second stint, Juan Pablo got very close to you.
Yeah, for whatever reason, the second stint didn't look as good for us, a little bit better for Juan. But still, we were obviously leading, and in the final stage of even the second stint, I was able to just open up a little bit of a gap because the thing came just back a little bit into my hand, and I think that was crucial. Obviously, then Juan thought to come in early to use the opportunity with his first couple laps to get in front of me. But in our last lap, we were still strong enough to maintain the lead.
Juan Pablo, let's have that first lap from your point of view.
I think it was pretty good. You know, Michael went for the inside, went for the outside. He, braked quite a bit earlier than me and made a lot of ground. But, you know, when I came out of the chicane, I was a lot tighter than him to make the corner, so I wouldn't hit him and just had better acceleration. First set of tires, it was okay, but my pace wasn't that good. Lost quite a bit of ground. Then in the second stint, we made a lot of ground. And in the last one, we were pretty close, and then got the traffic. You know, twice I lost a lot of time, and then just after this, you know, a second Jordan drive, and I just lost so much time that I said, you know, just pace myself and get to the end.
So you're saying you actually faced bad driving in traffic, or was it just luck of the draw?
Just, you know, very slow lap markers that didn't move out of the way, put it that way. But, you know, I think it would have been very hard to pass Michael anyway.
Juan Pablo, BMW Williams have been very strong here over the last 2 years. Not quite as strong today, perhaps. How do you put that in relation to the regulation change we've had over the last week or so?
I don't think it's got anything to do with it. It's, you know, this is a track, is the way it looked the last few races. It seems that, you know, Ferrari's in a bit in our position the last few years, that we struggle in most of the races, came here and we're very strong. Where this year is paper swap a little bit. We're still very strong, but, you know, the battle's here. But I believe in the last 2 races, you know, road courses, you know, there's normal circuits, you know, this is very, you know, low downforce and everything. I think high downforce should be strong again, and, you know, McLaren and Renault should be very strong, and we can make the difference there. You know, it's, I think I came out of here with at least loss possible. You know, I knew if I couldn't win, I had to try to finish second, and I did. I only lost 2 points to Michael. I'm 3 points behind him, and, you know, nothing's over.
Thanks, Juan Pablo. Rubens, you were pretty close to Juan Pablo for a while, but at the end, of course, it was a race almost of defence of third place from Kimi Räikkönen.
Yeah, to be honest, my first set was the best one. I had a little bit too much understeer to begin with, and I lost time with Trulli. I mean, he seemed to be, he seemed to think that he wanted to pass even Michael at the second chicane. So I lost time, and all of a sudden I almost crashed into him because he had a problem. He slowed down, so I had quite a first lap, and then I was running quite fast. I catch Montoya up, and it was really good. But then since I put my second set of tire, I never been so competitive. The third one was even worse, and I had a little bit of a problem with the rears, and unfortunately my pace wasn't so fast. It was good enough to hold Kimi, and so I did.
Thanks, Rubens. Michael, back to you. Juan Pablo has just been saying that he thinks when we get to Indy and Suzuka it might be a little different. How do you see the remaining 2 races now?
I think it's pretty open, and it's going to be very interesting. That's all. I think we can look ahead and we can say, I guess we have improved our situation. We all keep on improving. It just matters now in the final stage who improves more than the other.
But do you agree with Juan Pablo's comment that this circuit suits Ferrari particularly, and perhaps Williams BMW are going to be strong at Indy and Suzuka?
I think our engine guys have done a tremendous job, and the engine we have should help us everywhere, honestly. It's true if you look back the last 3 races, it gives the impression that high downforce didn't suit us that well, and low downforce suits us a little bit better. But then I think there are some other factors that play into that, and we'll find out. Indy isn't too high downforce. It's pretty similar to here or to Canada, from my memory. And we simply strong here because we have a very good package, both aerodynamic and engine. We had last year. We were able to win last year already with Rubens and myself. So it's not a surprise we did win.
No one's conceding anything, needless to say, with 2 rounds left to go in the championship. And it seems that Ferrari has got a good overall package, that there may not be that disadvantage that we saw in the last couple of rounds. As we look back on these highlights, now, Ryan, as we see that launch from Alonso there, which pretty much cruelled his race.
And drama for Alonso. You think about his race in Hungary a few weeks ago, an absolute hero, and this weekend the traction control failed on him yesterday, electronic failure for qualifying, so he looped the thing at the chicane. He's run into the back of Wilson at the start. A pretty amazing start here, Ryan. I thought this was just awesome motorsport.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great first lap between the top 4 drivers there. I mean, Trulli was attacking really hard and then trying to pass Schumacher as well. I thought it was fantastic.
Very professional, those two drivers, side by side. A few thou between them. Disappointing to see your teammate go out with a problem with the left rear tyre here.
Yeah, it's a bit of a strange problem. It's something that shouldn't happen, and he got out of it pretty luckily, I think.
They mentioned some debris in one of the interviews there, but I don't know. It's hard to tell.
Well, if there's any carbon fibre shards on the road left from anybody fracturing a floor or that stuff that occurred at the start line, it doesn't take very much, because the tread face on these tyres is actually almost sort of quite tissue thin, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very thin and very soft, and shrapnel like pieces of carbon fibre. It's very, very hard and very sharp, so it'll cut straight through a tyre.
I thought one of the interesting things was the intensity that was mentioned by both James and Martin. It wasn't really a cracker race, but the intensity of the motor race was quite extraordinary, and the efficiency of both Ferrari and Williams. Looking at these pit stops, you look, for example, at Montoya, and his first stop was an 8.4, his second stop was a 9.0. They slightly short-filled him on the first stop, versus Michael at an 8.6 plays a 9.2. Both teams ran virtually mirror strategies, and both teams were able to affect their stops in virtually the same period of time. Alonso again in trouble there, just ripping the floor off the thing just to compound what was a pretty ugly day for him. But I think whenever you see two teams locked in battle where their strategies are similar and the teams are able to affect that service with almost no variance, is pretty impressive.
Interesting comment, Ryan. I think Rubens brought it up about how the car and his pace was completely different on a new set of tyres that presumably should be identical to the first.
Well, yeah, I mean, normally, all three sets of tyres during a race should be the same. But, it doesn't take much maybe to change the performance of a tyre, maybe tyre pressures or temperatures or basic production. But
and that also is impacted by the temperature of the day, the wind direction, the amount of sunlight on the road. And so that can impact tyre performance. So Michael goes on here to his 69th Grand Prix victory, and as I said, just as the race concluded, another fastest lap goes in the book for him, and the Tifosi absolutely beside themselves. An awesome drive again from Mark Webber, picking up another 2 points.
It's interesting, the discussion about these technical items, tyres and other things, but we're so used to seeing Michael in the last couple of seasons just run away from them. The discussion wasn't incremental then. But it is now, of course, because everything's in the balance, and so many little things can have an impact when everybody is so close. Let's look ahead on your home of motorsport. There is certainly a lot involved in that. MotoGP from Rio, early Sunday morning. We'll bring it to you live, 1 o'clock in the morning. Tremendous battle there. Valentino Rossi not home yet in that championship. RPM, now this is a 90-minute special running from 3:30 to 5. Check your guides for details, of course, and we'll review this extraordinary round and look ahead on what is to come. And on that subject, the USA Grand Prix, the 15th round of 16, 3:30 in the morning. It's another early one, and we're looking forward very much to it. And we're very grateful for Ryan Briscoe sharing his time with us. A very quick trip back to Australia. I know you're leaving to go back to Europe tomorrow, mate. Thanks for your time. Good luck in the championship and with your Formula One career as well.
Thank you very much, guys.
And thank you very much, Neil Crompton. It's been a long day for us too.
It has been, well and truly.
We're all doing it tough here, but we're enjoying it. Hope you are too on your home of motorsport. In the meantime, on behalf of everyone, goodbye.
This program proudly brought to you by Vodafone, proud sponsors of the Scuderia Ferrari Formula One team. Michelin, discover a new driving experience. Shannon's, special insurance for special vehicles. And Panasonic, ideas for life.